Today I heard Mark Stein talk about a university professor in Texas who suggested that to be less white is to be less oppressive, just to insinuate that white people are oppressive, less ignorant, insinuates we're ignorant, less arrogant, less certain, less offensive, and less defensive. So be less of those. Assume as a white person that that's what you are, and be less oppressive, ignorant. That's a touchy one for me. I'm ignorant. Sorry, Professor. I suspect it's you. Less oppressive, ignorant, arrogant, certain, offensive. You don't think you're offensive? And defensive. So I guess I'm being defensive here. I don't like someone saying these things. So you want to be less oppressive, ignorant, arrogant, certain, offensive, and defensive, and you want to be more humble. You need to believe what you hear. Yeah, oh my God. You're going to believe everything CNN and CBC and you assholes in the academy tell me. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to believe, and I'm going to break with my party. I don't have a party. Aaron O'Toole seems okay. Break with white solidarity. The only white solidarity that you have now, really, is in response to everybody dumping on white people. If you didn't dump on us, we wouldn't need solidarity, because it's actually, the Western world is pretty fair. And so he asked one of his students, what do you think about that? And one of them said, I think it's just about appreciating that as a white person, you know, I'm not that smart, but I still have a job, and the other one said, well, I don't want to get canceled, so, you know, I don't know, what can I say? And the professor asked him, well, did you do anything oppressive today? And the guy said, no, I'm not really aware of being oppressive. And the professor asked him, did you breathe? Are you here? Did you breathe? Did you go outside? Because if you did any of those things, you're being oppressive. And then he asked, so what do you think about this? And what I think, and I've given this a lot of thought, and as a person who supports democracy, I'm loath to say this, because our whole trip is using conversation to avoid violence. So I'm not sure that I would advocate this, but I would sure like somebody to say it. I would like somebody to say, if he asks, what do you think about that? Honestly, Professor, I would like to see some thick-wristed mechanic punch you in your fucking face. That's what I'd like. That's what I think. It's a fantasy. I wouldn't advocate it. But boy, wouldn't that solve a lot of problems if we just punched you fuckers out. That's what I think. You ask me what I think, that's what I think, just to be honest. You guys need to get punched out. Have you heard the Gretchen Whitmer story? A bunch of redneck Republican supporters hitched a plan to kidnap a woman named Gretchen Whitmer. She's a Michigan Democrat. And that plot was foiled in the end, but of course it was a bunch of white Trump supporters did it, and oh my God, it just shows how violent and anti-democratic they are. Okay, so that's a great story, but the problem is that they're pretty much all FBI officers. The whole plot was hatched by the FBI. And the July 6th situation wasn't much different. The FBI organized that. They infiltrated that movement. They participated in the protest. They knew there were no guns there, so they didn't need to give any real advance warning. And they did it to make Republicans look bad And they did it to interrupt the session where they were going to talk about whether or not the election was valid or not. There was like 18 senators and 100 congressmen were willing to stand up and say, no, hang on, I don't think that election was valid. They interrupted that conversation. That benefited the Democrats. Trump was unbelievably stupid that day. I'll agree with that. Maybe criminally stupid, because he did seem to kind of egg them on. That was unbelievable to me. And I understand why people hate Trump. He has an authoritarian personality. You can't betray him. And he wants to be the boss. That's absolutely clear. But the thing is that other than that, and other than the racist and sexist comments that he made to get elected, it was a bizarre, grotesque spectacle. And by putting on that spectacle, he got CNN to pay for his election campaign, and he got elected. And so what did he do when he was elected? He dealt with Rocket Boy in Korea. Obama didn't want to talk to Trump, as you can imagine. But what he said I think this was right at the last moment, he said to Trump, you have a serious problem with North Korea. We have a serious problem with North Korea. There's the possibility of nuclear war is great. I don't know what to do about it. But there it is. And Trump handled it. Trump handled that. He may have avoided a nuclear war. That's the biggest thing. He called out critical race theory. He understands that to be the disease it is. He called out the election fraud, which is beyond obvious at this point, like in a dozen ways. I think I've done that before. He called out the election fraud, called out BLM, that turned out to be a profit-seeking, violent, disgusting organization that people are often still bowing to. It is grotesque. In the United States, they're fighting to have people have photo ID to vote. You need photo ID to rent a house, rent a car, buy a house, buy a car, get insurance, get on a plane. I think to get something from the pharmacy, you need it. You need a photo ID for a lot of things, and you don't need it to vote. That is as stupid and corrupt as it sounds. Nobody I've ever spoke to from another country said anything but, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, literally, what are you talking about? You don't need photo ID to vote. I think the United States and England are the only two countries to do it. I think you need photo ID in Canada. People voted without photo ID. They wanted people to vote without photo ID so they could vote twice. Or they could vote if they were disqualified in some way. Or they wanted illegal immigrants to vote. I don't hate illegal immigrants. I don't hate Mexican people. In fact, I kind of love Mexican people. Really, right? I have affection for them, and I hate what Biden is doing to them. Donald Trump slowed down the problem on the border. Biden and Kamala Harris increased that problem. So what that means is that all kinds of Latin American people, Latin American women, for example, are forced into a life of prostitution under control of the Mexican cocaine cartel. Okay? That is what Biden did. That is the result of his presidency. He colluded with Black Lives Matter to corrupt the election. There were times when if you made a donation to to Black Lives Matter, you didn't know if it went straight into the Democratic Party's war chest or whatever you want to call it. He built a military alliance with India. Did you know people in India love Trump? Do you know why? Because he's joining with them in a military alliance to face China. Right? What do you think? Is that a big deal? Did you even know that? Did you know that? You didn't know that because you didn't look into it and nobody told you. Watching the CBC is fun. Watching the CBC is really enjoyable. Do you know why? Because they don't talk about politics. They don't talk about anything important. Right now, whatever it is, August 1st, they're not talking about the crisis at the border with Mexico. They're not talking about people fighting against the communist government in Havana. They're not talking about the genocide of white farmers in South Africa. They're talking about, the girl got this. There's a girl, she was the first one to ever reach up top and get a big book from the top shelf. And the black lady, that's great. We got more black people doing this and more women doing that. And rah, it's all about the women. It's all about the women. It's all about the women. For fucking years they've been doing that. Years they've been doing that. But I like it. I like the personalities. I think it's comforting because they've been speaking pretty much the same way for 30 years. They don't deal with anything heavy or offensive. They're coming around a little bit, being more sensible, I would say, recently. There's that commenter from France, from Quebec, I've forgotten her name. Chantal Ibet. She's cool. And there's Anthony Coyne. He's pretty straightforward, I think. And the other lady, though, I really like her. Anyway. Maybe that's it for today. Oh, okay. Olympic officials. We got, they got the Tokyo Games going on there. Okay, so one Olympic official, high-ranking, got fired for making a fat joke like 20 years ago. Another one got fired for admitting that he was a bully in elementary school. This is according to Bill Maher. Bill Maher doesn't lie. So one guy gets fired for a fat joke. And these are important people. Like, the Olympics aren't going to go that well even now without these guys, probably. But they'll be replaced with women. Just watch it. You'll get you get women in there. That's always a positive. Does anybody really think that this isn't just being used as a way to... it wouldn't even matter the identity group. But you got an identity group, we're going to kick you out, we're going to move in. Like, are you serious? Okay, fat joke, laughing at something about the Holocaust. I'll think of, oh yeah, I already told you a good Holocaust joke. How many people died at Auschwitz? Fewer and fewer every decade. That's a good joke because it's true. And Hawaii, apparently some people in Hawaii are offended that surfing is now an Olympic sport. They say that the Olympics are racist and has stolen the Hawaiian sport. And you know how many Hawaiian people actually complained about that? Probably about 3. But it got the world's attention. There's nothing stupider than that. Bill Maher said it right. I mean, what is surfing? Somebody put a board and stood up on it at some time, right? It's not to disrespect Hawaiian people, but if they're making that point, anybody makes a point as stupid as that can get called out. Okay, that's all for today.